maybe we should give the viewers like a little bit more like a run up to the Guardians of the Looking Glass, and we'll talk a little bit about what is a looking glass, which probably very few people that are listening have heard about. Maybe some have. It's become more common, that's for sure. When I first heard about the looking glass, we were working on the film Packing for Mars, and we had people working in the film or that were being interviewed, protagonists like Laura Eisenhower. And she would often, when we did our conversations and our interviews for the film, she would talk about, Project Monarch and then Project Looking Glass. And I kept hearing Looking Glass and Looking Glass. And then we interviewed Bill Ryan and Carrie Cassidy. And as you know, those are two people that had founded probably the first pair of people to ever really kind of found a podcast or a webcast, I don't know, back then there was probably no name for it like that. But in the early 2000s, they began to interview whistleblowers that were working on black ops projects. And they had they had heard about the looking glass, and they did an interview with somebody who was directly involved. Now, the looking glass itself is kind of the way it's described. It's like it's like a glass, but it's not really glass. In this case, instead of being like a crystal ball, which is probably the cliched way of looking at it, it's a plasma ball. And in that plasma ball are images that you can see. And this is interesting because when I heard about the looking glass, it was after I'd heard about something, and we interviewed one of the people for Packing for Mars who worked on a project called the Chronovisor. And, I even have a picture, like a loose, I don't know if you call it picture, but it's sort of a depiction of this guy called Pellegrino Ernetti. He was a pastor working in the Vatican. He was also a physicist. And his passion was to try and figure out a way to capture audio signals, which had been, his theory was that if because audio is resonance, it's frequency and vibration, and it feeds the magnetic field of the planet. We know that our entire planet is surrounded by a magnetic field, and so he figured out there must be a way you can capture sort of the old remnant resonances of these audio files that are still kind of stored in the magnetosphere, like a giant, you could say, hard drive around the planet. And he was so successful at doing it that it was not just actual sound that he captured, but he actually captured pictures, gritty looking pictures. And, but they were able to, like, with the device that he created, project sort of a really gritty looking, grainy looking, almost 3D holographic, like black and white image of events that had taken place in the past, as crazy as this sounds. And this was in the 1950s, okay? So that device was shown to the Vatican and to some high brass and so Italian high brass, but very quickly vanished because the people that saw it, they were doing tests with it, and they could go back in time and they could listen to, or they, of course, the Vatican wanted to know the crucifixion, right? Is it real? Did it happen? Can we prove it? Can we show it? And before all that got out, it went under, and it only to surface about 20 years later. In another project that the man that we interviewed for Packing for Mars, Andrew Brishago, was involved in, called Project Pegasus, which he said was a combination of something that Nikola Tesla had been creating and the Chronovisor. The only picture I could maybe show you guys is this one, which is the Tesla magical disc, they called it. And apparently Tesla, he's kind of they thought of him as this crazy electrician he's pretty much been erased out of the history books because everyone remembers, Marconi and Thomas Edison. They've heard of Tesla coils, and now, of course, Elon Musk stole the name for Tesla cars. But essentially, what happened is you have Tesla being this amazing scientist who figured out a whole different form of physics, not going on like Einstein's theory of relativity, which is completely flawed, and he plagiarized it anyway. It wasn't even his. But Tesla took this totally different concept of the universe And he figured out, ways to generate electricity wirelessly. All our cell phones, wireless mobile technology, it all comes out of Tesla's work. And of course, because as soon as he figured out how to do electricity wirelessly, his financier, J.P. Morgan, figured out, hey, we're not going to make any money on this, so let's pull the plug. And his amazing Wardenclyffe Tower, which he had created, where he was gonna create the first live demonstration of wirelessly transmitted electricity across the ocean, was knocked out. And that was the end. And we never really heard of Tesla again, although he was involved on working on the technology behind the Philadelphia experiment. Now, that's something maybe some of your viewers have also heard about. All these things, there's been films about, and there's been whispers about on the internet. Okay, so fast forward, so we have this technology that somehow allows people to peer into other times, remnant times, and maybe not even the future, maybe also the past, and other versions of the present and different timelines. It works into the idea that we don't just live in one dimension or in one timeline. And in quantum physics now, they're coming up with new models and new understandings of the universe that make it clear that, we are essentially working in like parallel timelines. And as soon as we make one decision to maybe go right instead of left, or go to the store or not go to the store, we've altered our timeline and created a version of the timeline which is, customized to our own new preference. But the way eternity in the universe is supposed to work, according to quantum physics, is that there also was a version of you that made the other decision. And he went to the store, or he went to the movie, or didn't, or whatever, So these versions of the timeline are virtually invisible, but they're still running parallel to you in another dimension. And so the looking glass technology apparently is based on technology that actually is able to view these timelines.
Please click on the link here, watch the full video, and see what Frank has to say about the coming days and weeks, what's about to unfold, what event one is, and how we can change the future right now.